Captain James Tiberius Kirk, the patriarch of Star Trek, the character that every man wants to be and every woman wants to shag, played by 3 different actors, and that's what we're talking about today. They're different portrayals. If you liked any one of these, or if you enjoyed any of these particular actors more than another, make sure to write it down in the comments or tell me what you hate about them. Let's get into the video. Starting off, obviously, with the newest first, because William Shatner is the definitive Captain Kirk. The character is so muddied between William Shatner and Captain Kirk that it's sort of a comparison to William Shatner himself anyway. We'll start off with Strange New Worlds' Captain Kirk, Mr. Paul Wesley, who had starred, I think, in one of those vampire series. I don't particularly like vampire shows, except for Buffy. And my initial thoughts about Captain Kirk was one thing, and that is that Captain Kirk should be a stockier, thicker individual, and seeing him as sort of small and very, very thin was a bit of a jarring experience. Also, Paul Wesley feels a bit older than he should. I don't know what that is. I think it's the way he holds his jaw, or I'm really not quite sure. From what we've seen in Strange New Worlds, he has that charm. He has probably a more serious tone, a little bit more silly. It's good to see him have a relationship with Sam, his brother, who, funnily enough, I always thought would play a better Jim Kirk than Paul Wesley would. But it was great to see the character come back. I actually took me time to grow into Paul Wesley's interpretation. I think he plays a less sure of himself, a more insecure version of Kirk than what we got as Captain Kirk in the original series. We get a Captain Kirk who's not quite the guy we know. Not to mention the fact that a good chunk of Captain Kirks we saw were parallel universe, destroyed universe, and he does pop up and he does meet Captain Pike. There's a little bit of a continuity issue, but not much if you just take it as Captain Kirk doesn't really remember later on. I think Paul Wesley's performance takes time to grow. I think it's one of those performances that really needs to sort of grow with the show. So it'll be interesting to see where they go in season 3 of Strange New Worlds.
What is happening right now?
Not sure either.
You're seriously not going to apologize?
For what? For being extremely competent?
For being a... Okay. You know what? Forget it. Go have fun on your stupid little ship. I'm going to be here on the flagship.
Moving on to our second Star Trek Captain Kirk, Mr. Chris Pine, of whom played Captain Kirk in the Star Trek 2009 Kelvin films, Star Trek Into Darkness, and Star Trek Beyond. Now, I hands down think that out of the 2 people who played Captain Kirk, other than William Shatner, Chris Pine is the strongest. He's cocky, he's sure of himself, a little bit more Han Solo in there. Han Solo? A little bit more cool, a little bit more sort of by the seat of his pants. But that's only really sort of the first 2 movies. So when we get into Star Trek Beyond, we get a proper Captain Kirk. Maybe a little bit early for that Star Trek franchise, and hopefully we get a Star Trek 4 within that timeline. But I certainly think that Chris Pine gives us an exceptional version of Kirk. You can picture Chris Pine being a younger version of William Shatner. And I think that's also sold because in Star Trek 2009, Leonard Nimoy was there to sort of show that he recognized him. He saw him within Chris Pine. And I think that was the consistently amazing thing is Chris Pine gave a great performance in each film. His relationship with Spock and with Bones was perfect. His sort of relationship with Uhura is perfect, with all the crew. And I think Chris Pine in general is a pretty good actor. And I think, to be honest, he's probably the one that if they were going to continue Kirk, he's the one I would choose. Certainly I've seen him in other things where he's been a bit funny and a bit... He always plays this charismatic character. So to have him play a younger version of William Shatner's version of Kirk, while being different enough, really sort of led to an amazingly good performance in all three of those films. And it's really sad that he didn't make an appearance again, and I hope we do get another Kelvin Timeline film.
I don't know you.
I am Spock.
Bullshit.
Now on to the big kahuna himself, William Shatner, originating the role of Captain Kirk in the original series, playing Kirk for 7 out of the 10 original films, being a figurehead for Star Trek. Now, William Shatner is an oddball. He's a bit crazy. He has a long-standing career, even though he was pretty thoroughly typecast as Kirk from the original series and movies. But William Shatner and Kirk slowly became more intertwined. Kirk's charisma and sort of attitude became very much about, he had horses, he was a ladies' man, and it all felt very William Shatner, even to the point where you see William Shatner in roles now, and he's playing a bit of a girl-crazy old dude or a little bit of a wacky old man, because William Shatner is essentially that. There was a lot of on-set jealousy between George Takei and William Shatner. William Shatner's friendship with Leonard Nimoy went on for years until just before his death and something happened. His affection and feelings for fans, like he generally, I think he's a little bit, I want to say, outdated in his views, but he, in regards to William Shatner, the actor, he did a tremendous job. Kirk's defining characters, being charismatic, commanding, a leader, bringing feeling and passion to the role, was very much William Shatner. And each actor shouldn't mimic William Shatner, and I don't think Chris Pine did, and I certainly don't think Paul Wesley did. I think bringing their own style to their versions of Captain Kirk is a lot better than trying to be William Shatner. And even Chris Pine has said this in interviews, that he didn't want to go in and mimic William Shatner. He wanted to sort of have a similar feeling to William Shatner. Overall, we've had 3 versions of this character, the same as we've had 3 versions of Spock, we've had 3 versions of Pike, we've only had 2 versions of Number 1, but in terms of who the character is and the strengths of that character, and our vision of what that character is, William Shatner is the definitive of this character. He's an amazing actor in terms of how flexible he is. He's funny, but he can do serious. There's a moment in Star Trek 3 where he falls back in his chair, which was William Shatner improvising. He's amazing. In terms of Chris Pine, they had a very similar chemistry, a very similar relationship. It's really great to, if you've watched the Captain's documentary, see Shatner talking to Chris Pine. Paul Wesley, while we haven't seen as much of him, or I would say we've seen as much of him as Chris Pine, but he's taking a bit longer to sort of find his footing in this role. I think Paul Wesley is maybe the least, I want to say, interesting version of Kirk. I do think that maybe with today's times ironing out some of his more womanizing-ish moments is probably a better thing. You don't really want him falling in love and banging a woman every episode. And I know in TOS he didn't do it every episode, but it was a lot. William Shatner, Chris Pine had some sort of feeling, some sort of chemistry that very much reflected each other, and Chris Pine in a much more modern way. But I think that maybe we'll see how the third one goes in Star Trek Strange New World Season 3. I'm pretty sure he's going to get a bit better. Anyway, what do you think about these three actors? Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and come back for more TrekTrav.
Risk is our business. That's what the Starship is all about. That's why we're aboard her.